President Trump just lost support for his re-election bid from a former member of his administration and inner circle. Former White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci confirming today he thinks Republicans need to consider a change at the top of the ticket. In a war of words over the weekend, President Trump criticized Mr. Scaramucci, tweeting in part that Scaramucci, quote, seems to do nothing but television as the all-time expert on President Trump. In response, Scaramucci called out the president's rhetoric in the wake of the mass shootings in Dayton and El Paso, saying the president has, quote, said things that divide the country in a way that is unacceptable. He also said the president will turn on everyone eventually, including the entire country. It's pretty big. Joining us now, former White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci. He was not only a member of the administration, he worked on President Trump's campaign, he was a surrogate for him, and he wrote a book about the president called Trump, the Blue-Collar President. Anthony, welcome. Good to see you. You and I have spoken about President Trump and his conduct for quite some time. Back in 2017, regarding this idea, let Trump be Trump, you said this.
The president himself is always going to be the president. I was in the Oval Office with him earlier today, and we were talking about letting him be himself, letting him express his full identity. I think he's got some of the best political instincts in the world, and perhaps in history. I think it's super important for us to let him express his personality. It has been a very successful life experience for President Trump to be President Trump, and so let's let him do that.
Anthony, you've made that argument to me face to face. What changed now? You've always said, let Trump be Trump. That's the best of him. That's what he's still doing.
Well, first off, that background looked a lot better than this background. So we just have to acknowledge that for everybody. But secondarily, yeah, well, he is definitely doing that, but he's moving on a degrading slope. And so if you look at the rate of change in his personality, where he was in 2016, 2017, he's sort of a different person in 2019. And you're a very good journalist, so don't just go by me. There's a lot of people that will tell you that they're inside the president's inner circle, but they're just fearful right now of opening up and explaining that to the American public. And so, you know, some of it is just fear. They don't want to get lit up on Twitter or cyber bullied. I can't think of anything less American, Stephanie, than bullying people and being the American president and you using your Twitter feed to call out your fellow citizens on Twitter.
But Anthony,
I mean, couldn't be more honest.
The only thing different today is that he's going after you on Twitter. He started running for president, calling Mexicans rapists and drug dealers and criminals, and he was crushing other people running for president on the debate stage. So what is different today?
Okay. Well, again, like I said, you may not like my arrival to this moment, and you may disagree with my arrival and think I should have gotten there sooner. But you have to understand, like most Republicans, I started out supporting someone. Donald Trump won the primary. I then decided to go work for him, being loyal. Everybody on that stage took a loyalty pledge to him. Some disavowed it. And I worked very hard on his campaign. I believed in the message, as I was referencing inside the White House, that he was delivering to blue-collar people. It felt like, Stephanie, that a good portion of the American people were left out of the political establishment in terms of advocacy. And so I went down that slope. And so as you go down that slope, unfortunately, if you're dealing with a demagogue, what ends up happening is you have to have an absolute asymmetric loyalty test to that demagogue. So if you have one or two syllables out of place, the guy will disavow you, which is what he did to me. A week ago, I was saying, geez, I wish you would stop with the racist tweets. Many of us in the Republican Party like elements of the agenda, like a lot of the things that are going on in the economy and the growth of employment in the African American and Hispanic American communities. But would you cut it out with the racist tweets? And so his response to that is to cyber bully me, and that's fine. And so you could then say, well, he hit on you, and now you're moving on him.
Okay, then let's go past you.
I accept all of that. So here we are now, and so I'm ready for the challenge. But here's the other thing, okay?
But hold on, I want to go past this being you and the president, Anthony.
Okay,
and you said he was going to deliver to the blue-collar voter. Has he? Well, let's talk policy for a moment.
I think
because that's been the argument. You know, he's going to deliver for them.
Well,
Show
you know,
me
I've been studying. I've been studying the economy for 30 years. In some ways he has. If you look at the lower 10% of the economy, there's been a 5.4% increase in wages for those people. If you look at the African American and Hispanic American unemployment numbers, they're at historic lows. So yes, in some ways he has. In other ways he hasn't. The tax cut was skewed to the corporations, and the corporations used it, as many people predicted, for share repurchases and less about capital investment. But I think the capital investment issue has more to do with the president's tariffs than it does with the tax code.
But
so
Anthony,
it's a mixed bag.
Even if we see
but yes,
companies,
he has helped on some of that.
Even if we see companies make a business investment today in 2019, a business investment is in technology and automation. Haven't we learned in the last few years, looking at what companies did besides buybacks with the money they got from the tax cut? They're not giving Laverne and Shirley their jobs back. Those jobs are not returning to the American economy.
Well, I mean, I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I think it's about 600,000 manufacturing jobs have actually returned to the United States in the last 2.5 years. You're making a much broader point about the future, which I'm willing to accept, and that's another indictment of the political establishment, because there should be education reform, K through 12. We have absolutely no plan for that. There's no 10, 15, or 25-year plan. There should be more technical jobs training, as we both know. There's no plan. But that's more of an indictment of both parties. It's not just one party that you could pin that on.
There are 2020 candidates right off the top of my head when you talk about job retraining. Andrew Yang, education reform, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris. You've said that you will not vote for a Democrat. When you talk about those broader things that aren't being addressed in the political climate, they are. They're just not being addressed by the current administration. So why wouldn't you side with a Democrat?
What I said is I'm a Republican. I think the president needs to be challenged. I think he's a very tired pitcher now that's throwing balls over the backstop, and we need a relief pitcher to come in that can speak to the American people about very similar policies with a different, more inclusive style. And so let's see where that goes first. And then we can talk about where things are. You know, if Elizabeth Warren is the Republican nominee, President Trump will beat her by a 40-state landslide. Okay, you just have to look at it objectively. Okay,
Stephanie. But what if it's not Elizabeth Warren? I look at people who have flags outside that say, "Vote Trump, forget this socialist BS from Democrats." What do you do with those flags and this Trump 2020 game plan if you get a nominee like Joe Biden? Last I checked, he's nowhere near a socialist.
Okay, well, Joe Biden's doing very well in the polls. I think he needs to get up to speed and be more
I'm asking what do Republicans do? I'm not asking about Joe Biden. What do Republicans who are claiming
We'll have to wait and see because you know, I have to wait a couple of more weeks like last week. You know, I'm hoping that there'll be some courage in the Republican Party where people will say, okay, wait a minute, this is not going to work. You can't have this sort of nonsense going on for another 4 to 5 years in the White House. You know, anybody that you talk to inside the White House, outside the White House, who does the president listen to? Who does he take counsel of? And the answer is nobody. And so that's a very dangerous place to be. And it's getting worse and worse. And so for me, I'm calling on my fellow Republicans. They know it's true. They know everything that I'm saying on your television show right now is 100% true. The question is going to be about them. Do they have the courage to step forth in a block, okay, and knock this guy off? If they do, then I think it'll be a very fun race, and I think that the Republicans will win. If they don't, he's stuck at 42%. If they put up somebody like Joe Biden, okay, it's going to be very tough in Michigan, in places like Pennsylvania. And you have to remember, go look at the new voter registration numbers, Stephanie. I don't have them in front of me, but they are way skewed towards independents and Democrats with very little on the Republican side.
Okay,
so he's not winning over new voters. And it was not a landslide victory. I think one of the things the president's done a masterful job of is convincing the Republicans on the Hill and in the caucus that he had some kind of landslide victory. And if they come at him or they get one syllable or one sentence out of place in disagreement, you know, they're shaking in their boots. And so, but he didn't have a landslide victory. So it could be very close if they put somebody like Joe Biden at the top of the ticket.
Before we go, Anthony, I just want to ask you about the economy one more time, because there are a lot of voters out there. We heard just last week from Steve Ross, CEO of Related, who said there are a lot of things he doesn't support about the president, but he likes some of his policies. Wink, wink, we're talking the tax cut, we're talking the economy. But just last week, and he was referencing trade, David Solomon, CEO of Goldman Sachs, where you formerly worked, said that he believes President Trump's policies could lead us to recession. Do you believe that's the case? And if it does, then what does that do to the president come 2020?
So, I mean, the problem is you're playing like Trump tariff roulette. And so he's got business leaders, large and small, around the country scared, and they've reduced their capital investment. You can see it in the first and second quarter data. It's going to be way worse in the third quarter data. And that's why the Fed is cutting rates. If you're cutting rates, it's a sign of economic weakness in the economy. And so he could tip the economy into recession. He had the opportunity to be a good cheerleader and to coordinate a trade strategy. But once again, he elected to go it alone, shooting from the hip. And now he's created all of these doctrine of unintended consequences. And so the trade thing could end up becoming his Achilles heel, because you go into a recession in the second into the third quarter, that's going to create very fragile ice under his platform and his candidacy.
All right, Anthony, thank you so much for joining me. Always good to see you. Anthony Scaramucci.
Hey, good to be here.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.